Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Mango, the GOAT. It's another mental liberation moment. And this is the IIP. IIP stands for Involuntary Immigrants Podcast. I want to argue with a lot of people in the Negro community. A lot of people say crack is what fucked up the Negro community, and I'm going to say, nah, I believe it was integration. But it makes me want to dig into crack because, like, crack itself, it fucked up some of the community by way of turning a lot of us into zombies and, soulless people. But we were already headed downhill from there, and that's why it was so easy to get a lot of us hooked on crack. Crack runs with poverty. It's a poverty drug. So cocaine is the base of crack, right? And that's a rich man's drug. But the other form of that is crack, and that's a poor man's drug. So how do you get all the negatives of cocaine into the hands of the people who can't afford it? Here you have crack. Now, the problem with crack is with crack, the jugs outlast the dealers. And that's by way of the war on drugs. And by way of the underground war on drugs. So you have one war on drugs that is the police and all this shit. And then you have the underground war on drugs where it's nigga on nigga, right? And through all of that, the jugs outlive them all. Now, a lot of y'all may not know this or have noticed jugs don't really die from crack like that. Like their health deteriorates and do this and that just because they don't take care of themselves. But jugs don't really die from crack. Like if you have a healthy lifestyle and you smoke crack, you could live for a pretty good time. I mean, maybe not a pretty good time, but more so than the poorest crackhead on the block. Crack ain't like heroin or fentanyl or none of this other shit where you do it and you just, one day you injecting this fucking hot syrup in your fucking arm and then you just overdose and die. Crack ain't like that. Now you do get bad batches of crack mixed up with shit and all this random shit, but crack itself just makes people into zombies. They don't really necessarily kill them. So these jugs outlast the deal. If you look at your basic jug done been served probably by over 15 different crack dealers. The reason I'm bringing this up and why, because the failure of the war on drugs is you lock up the drug dealers, right? But for the jug, you treat them as victims, right? But as long as there are jugs, they're drug dealers. So when you take away the drug dealers, right, and you throw them away, somebody else seizes the opportunity. It's like if McDonald's went down tomorrow, what's the next burger joint that's going to come out? So if you really want to get rid of, like if you really had a plan for the war on drugs, you really wanted to get drugs out of the community, the first thing you got to do is get rid of the jug. Because if there's nobody to sell crack to, people wouldn't really be dealing crack. It's just simple. It's just simple. How many Bentley dealerships do you see in the projects? There's nobody to sell Bentleys to like that in the projects. Now, you might see a Bentley come through here and there, but there's nobody to sell shit to. If there's nobody to buy it, it's not going to be in that community. So what I'm saying is, if these people really cared and really wanted to get rid of the drugs out of the community, instead of making the dealer look like the devil, they should have made the user look like the devil. It's the same thing with prostitution. Anything that has a buyer-seller's market that's illegal. Charge the buyer more. Get rid of the buyer. Because if you get rid of the buyer, who the fuck you gonna sell to? And that's how you get rid of the war on drugs. Oh man, damn Mango. Where were you at in the 80s with that philosophy? Yeah, I know. I'm a late 80s baby. I couldn't talk when they needed me. But you're welcome now. And looking at all of that shit I just said, it takes me to the rap culture because rap was a part of the promotion of a lot of the crack dealings and just the whole thing in general. It went hand in hand with each other. And like I've given people shit before with the murder music and all of this shit. I'm a big fan of the rappers. I'm a big fan of any young black person doing something to make money, to make wealth, create wealth. But I'm also against toxic messages that repeat a cycle. And I was listening to James Brown, and I just realized, you know, I think James Brown's one of the best artists ever. But then I realized what makes him the best is the soul. And then I realized how every one of our artists got souls, just soul in them. And even if it's a motherfucker rapping about taking somebody's soul, it may not sound as orchestrated and throwback as a James Brown album, or it may not make you feel black and proud, but the rhythm in the blues is in all of it. And then you got to think soul is emotion, you know? So did we not face reality in time as a black culture as far as the 90s rap went? Because, you know, hitting OG status, looking at these young bucks like, man, y'all living life, but could it be that y'all are just reporting the world they see? That make any sense? Because I'm trying to break this down. We look at the young bucks, man, and we like judge and critique them. Like, no, that's what all they talking about is drilling and drilling and drilling. But it's selling. Well, why is that? Some listen to it as a fantasy, but some are just reporters. Some could just be reporting the world that they see. Better yet, the world that we left them. Because it's a domino effect, you know? Just like James did music, and they did music about the world they saw. Temptations, all of them, they did music about the world they saw. And then it went to the next phase. Right after them, you go into like the disco and all of that. And, you know, most of the music is made for drugs. And so it's about the world they saw. And they got subliminal drugs. And then it goes into the rap. And the rap is coming out. And it's about the inner cities. It's about the world they saw. And then that's where we get to the keeping it real in the music. See, I heard the motherfuckers talking about, like, old heads talking about, back in the day, they used to have music about loving a woman, loving her this and that. Well, clearly, the media is against black heterosexuals, in my opinion. That's because you never know what you're going to get. You're going to get this quote unquote male toxicity, they say. So it's easier and it's more friendly when you have a feminized, talented brother to deal with. If you look at the BET Awards in the early 2000s, that shit was, man, you didn't know if a bitch was going to get shot because everybody beefing. You don't know all that. And so the conflict sold the tickets. See, now at the BET Award, the controversy sells. So at the BET Awards now, if you look at the crowd of the BET Awards in 2022, they wouldn't have felt comfortable in the early 2000s. Now, granted, I'm pretty sure a lot of them Negroes in the early 2000s was closet homosexuals. A lot of them niggas were probably gay as hell. But they wouldn't showcase it as much as they showcase it now. And you get paid more money to showcase it now. Period. You come out and say you are such and such artist and you like sucking dick when you're not making music, you will have a fan base. You'll be controversy as fuck, but you're going to get paid. Period. So, you know, we can only hold accountable our peers and elders. And this is some true shit because a lot of this, like I said, we left the world, even though we still living in it. We followed the people above us and we tried to do our own thing, which we either followed the negative or we went against it, but we tried to do our own thing. And so then we left a world to these young motherfuckers behind us. And they did their thing with it. It's almost like the equivalent of Gucci Man Gucci Mane was like one of the first person I heard smoking packs. So now, hence in 2022, he's telling people not to do that. And he took credit, like, man, I started this shit, but we need to stop this and the dead and this and that, because it follows. It's a domino effect. See, I know growing up, I despised a lot of my elders. I seen a nigga tell me, keep my head in them books. As he said, keep your head in them books, young blood. And then he turned around and spent his money on some pussy. So I had one homeboy, he told me, don't sell weed, dog. You wasting your time. You need to sell cocaine. Keep in mind, I'm a teenager. You need to sell cocaine, bro. That weed, bro, you just wasting your time. I see him a couple years later, he's stuffing his veins up with heroin. So you see, it depends on your peers and all that, but you can't really knock these young bucks for the world you left them as a culture. We can only hold accountable our peers and our elders, not the ones after us. Now we can give them love, and we can show them where we went wrong. We could tell them where we went wrong. We can do this and that. But to sit there and shit on them is terrible. Like we can talk about where they going wrong and where it could go. But individually, to sit there, man, you did this, you do that, and y'all blah, blah, blah. Number one, that turns us to opposition. So now they definitely rebel against anything we try to give them. Now, we can only hold accountable our peers and elders, not the ones after us. And if this is the world we left them and they do not know better, then we did fail them. Now, if this is the world they know and they know better but choose not to do better, then, you know, that's on them as adults now, newly adults to the culture. But when your OG's telling you take the murder charge for them, your OG failed you. I'd like to thank y'all for listening. Till next time.
Do you remember writing in your diary that freedom is the freedom to say 2 and 2 make 4?
Yes.
How many fingers am I holding up, Winston?
4.
And if the party says it is not 4 but 5, then
4.
180. How many? 190. How many fingers, Winston?
4. 5. 4. Anything you like. Only stop the pain. Stop.
Involuntary. Done contrary to or without choice. Involuntary.
Immigrant.
Done contrary
Definition
to
1.
or without choice.
Person who immigrates.
Involuntary.
Immigrant.
Done contrary
Definition
to
1.
or without choice.
Person who comes
Done contrary to or without choice. Done contrary to or without choice. Done contrary to or without choice.
Definition 1. Immigrant. Definition 1. Unknown. Person who established. Person unknown. Unknown. Established.
Trying to free your mind.
What white people have to do is try to find out in their own hearts why it was necessary to have a nigger in the first place. But if you think I'm a nigger, it means you need it. The question you gotta ask yourself, the white population of this country's gotta ask itself. North and South, because it's one country, and for a Negro, there is no difference between North and South. There's just, a difference in the way they castrate you.
Who taught you to hate yourself?
Involuntary. Done contrary to or without choice.
Immigrant. Definition 1. A person who immigrates. Definition 2. A plant or animal that becomes established where it was previously unknown.